Welcome to Inside the Artist Studio, where we have interesting conversations with creatives all across the country. I'm Beverly Todd at Santa Fe Artist Getaway in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and our special guest today is David Lobenberg, who is sitting in his studio in Sacramento, California. And David, welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Hey, this is the first time we've met.
Exactly.
Virtually.
Thank you. Thanks to Zoom, we can do this. You can be there, I can be here, and we're going to have a great time just chatting about art. So everyone, what I want you to know about David is his work, as you can see behind him, explodes with color. You might be the most colorful artist I know. How did you get to be such this dynamic, rainbow-hued, fun artist? I mean, your work is just fun.
That's a good question. I think two reasons. Personality, I love people. I've been teaching workshops all across the country, and I love flying to different places and meeting different people and interacting as I'm teaching. So I'm just kind of I am an upbeat person. So that gets reflected, I guess that gets reflected in my art. The other thing that has happened over the years, I've always been a big fan, and he recently passed away, Charles Reed, a great American watercolorist. And I over the years, I bought all of his books. He was a very, and I put in quotes, messy painter. So he was able, through watercolor, to capture a likeness of anything, whether it be figurative, portraiture, still life. He was great, but he loved to see, sometimes he loved to see the color run, because he worked kind of on a 45-degree angle, so he'd get some runs. Every once in a while, he'd take up his brush and he'd give a splatter here and there. So this added energy, not to mention the fact that he used nice bright colors, and he was so good. Not a lot of overwashes, not a lot of glazing. He put the paint down, boom, it's done. The color's always nice and bold and strong. So over the years, I mean, he was my mentor, and I would copy his style because I liked it. But then about, 8 years ago, I lose track of time, I started to get bored. Okay, I can paint like Charles Reed. I want to push myself. So I started to apply paint a lot more aggressively in the very beginning, and then towards the middle and end, I tie it all together. So I would have, I'd have splatters and splashes, bold, crazy colors, and also I work fairly intuitively. So I slowly built up even more energy. Right now I'm reading a book by Bob Fosse, or about Bob Fosse. A lot of the steps that he did was picked up by, and he died recently, Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
Names. It came into my head. Michael Jackson. Like Michael Jackson's moonwalk.
Yes.
Bob Fosse did it first in a movie called The Little Prince. Michael Jackson perfected it and made it even more amazing. So that's kind of what I did. I copied Charles Reed, and then I pushed it out several more degrees, and then I call it my California Vibe watercolor portraiture style. And I have a good friend. He used to be the president of the National Watercolor Society. And I love the definition he gave about my style, the way I paint. He said, David paints with a hammer. So I thought that was kind of cool. But I'm still in control. Yes. But I can be very aggressive and quick and fast.
I think it's an interesting dichotomy that you point out. You are quick and fast and loose, but yet you can control it. So there's a push-pull between letting it flow, but then also making it go where you want. It's an interesting concept.
Yeah, that's true. And sometimes, sometimes I can create an unholy mess. but that's okay. And I've developed a style. I know how to draw very well. I've taught drawing for years at our local community college. I was an adjunct art professor there. But I do tons of tracing, and I think a lot of artists. Well, I know a lot of artists do that. It's not cheating. That's just what you do. Your emphasis, your creative emphasis, is within the painting process. So I'll trace out a person's face. I like to take my own photographs, and then I'll enlarge that. I have my studio. I have a plain paper copy machine. I'll enlarge that to painting size, and then I'll just simply trace it. But I know how to trace. It looks like I drew it. Not that I'm trying to fool anybody, but the tracing line work, which I do with a soft office pencil, that's integrated, and that's part and parcel of my style. So when I'm done with the painting, I don't erase the pencil. That only adds to it. So that allows me to fail and not have to think in the back of my mind, oh my God, I've got to draw this all over again. I know how to draw very well, but I don't draw lightning fast. But by having that master tracing, I still, I can trace it very quickly and start another one. So that lessens that, there's always an intimidation factor, and especially with a medium like watercolor.
Right. Well, and especially working with faces, if you are drawing just from looking at a model or a reference photo, it is so easy to get off kilter if the eye is just slightly weird. And if you can't get a face right, people will not appreciate your art. So
what are we most sensitive to? Our own species, our faces. Yeah.
And watercolor is such a unique medium. Letting the paper glow and come through and show and reflect back the light is so important. And I see that in your work. Do you consciously think about that throughout, how the paint will flow and what colors are going to be light and dark?
Absolutely, because basically the light's built into the paper. I like to paint on Fabriano Artistico. It's a supernatural white. And so that paint comes through the wash or the washes. And then the key thing here, and I teach this all the time, you don't have to use natural colors. You can paint in expressive. Why wouldn't you paint a blue face? Why wouldn't you paint a red face? Or a combination of colors? But you do have to follow scrupulously the value pattern that you see cutting across the face.
So your lights and brights need to be, for instance, yellow, and your darks can be purple. Hey, I think you have a sample there. Why don't you show something you've been working on?
This is a funny one.
I love it.
I call this Whistler's Daughter, an homage to James McNeill Whistler. And I get a lot of faces now, by the way. I don't know if you've ever seen the app Sketchy.
I think I have, where you can take a photo into it and.
Well, what it is 24/7, people take photos of themselves, either individual or a group. They take photos with their pets. They take boring photos. They take crazy photos. There are some people with just your average face. There are some people that, oh my God, this face is incredible. And they post these 24/7 all year round on Sketchy. They just roll by. So with your app, you can go through, you could spend hours and hours looking at these photos. And the people that put them on the app, that send them in, allow you to draw or paint without any, legalese.
So you can find some interesting faces on Sketchy is what you're saying.
Oh yeah. Well, she was on Sketchy.
Yeah.
So here's another one. Well, let me show you now this is a photo I took when I was teaching.
Mm-hmm.
This young guy, I call him Spiky Boy because he had the spiky hair. So lately I've incorporated, not only do I do my style, but I'll do something that I call stencil embellishing. So when I'm done with the portrait, I'll overlay it. I hope I'm not over answering your question.
Oh gosh, please go. This is so interesting. I love seeing the process.
Well, I buy these stencils.
Uh-huh.
There's a close-up. Woo!
That's a wild one.
I don't like stencils of representational objects. Anytime I can find stencils that are non-objective, I think that's the right word. Then what I do when I'm done with the painting, I put it over it, and I'm able to take off paint, and I'm left. So the trick is, it's not easy. The trick is to figure out how you can incorporate it in a natural way.
So the stencil, for instance, I work in acrylics. If I used a stencil, I would lay paint down in the negative spaces of the stencil. You're doing it reverse. You're taking.
Well, no, I do it both ways.
Oh, okay.
I do it most of the time reverse. I find that the most compelling. But I also will apply paint to a sponge and lay this on my paper and pat the paint on. So yeah, I call it positive and negative stenciling.
Add or subtract.
Yes. And then an art supply distributor one fine day sent me chalk markers. Let me show you.
All right, let's see the chalk markers.
Look at all the colors.
Are they like a magic marker? Or are they more fluid?
You go to a restaurant.
Yeah.
And you see on the sidewalk a sandwich board, and it's like a black board, like an old time chalkboard. Well, they make chalk markers with all these wonderful colors that they write, the special of the day or the names of the sandwiches. And crafters use these. Now, the cool thing, you get the good chalk markers, they're filled with a liquid chalk-like substance or pigment. It's natural pigment, so it's not something that's necessarily going to disappear real quickly. Plus, I'm getting out of the picture for a little bit so I can reach it.
We know you're coming back.
You know I'm coming back. So here's one I've used a little stenciling in the hair and up here. But then I apply these with chalk markers, these bright, vivid colors. This is pushing way out from what Charles Reed did. Charles Reed was a master, and he was my inspiration, my muse, and then I'm doing my own thing now.
It's a fabulous result. The intensity of that orangey pink on the hair is it's almost neon.
And yet, I'm still working. I'm not doing German expressionism. That was a lot rougher, and I don't think they were too concerned about getting a closer likeness. This is a little more, if you will, of a natural look, but it's just got this extra punch with the chalk. And I don't do it all the time. Sometimes I like to do just a flat out expressive watercolor without all that. For instance, this is a good example. I think this is just as punchy. There's no stenciling.
Oh, yes.
There's no chalk. That depends what you want to do.
And that feels almost
Oh.
minimalist, like less is more. And the negative,
Yeah.
the negative space around the face highlights the face. So David,
Exactly.
you are teaching all of this. Everything we have talked about is not a secret. You are teaching this in your online workshops.
Right.
You have in multiple places, but you will be teaching online through Santa Fe Artist Getaway coming up, and I believe
Hey.
in May.
Yes.
Yeah. So what can people expect when they sign up and log on? We'll be doing Zoom workshops just like this.
Yeah.
And we'll be working in his studio in Sacramento. What can people expect? What will they learn? What will they take away?
Well, first, I want them to know, and I think this is important because a lot of people get intimidated with portraiture.
Mhm.
If you want to sign up for my workshop, you're signing up for watercolor painting and fun. You do not even have to have experience doing a portrait.
Uh-huh.
Because before the workshop begins, and I think I sent you materials.
Yes, we have those.
Oh, okay. I send our reference photos, so you have, and those are sent out to the participants several weeks before the workshop. So you have the subjects and their photographs. Then I send the associated outline drawings of the faces that I did. So all you got to do, and I supply directions, is trace those outline drawings onto quarter sheets of watercolor paper with a simple office pencil. So it's all outlined, all ready to go before the workshop. Now, during the workshop, we'll do those subjects. Typically, it's 3 to 4 subjects, male, female. So let's say the first day we do Spiky Boy. You've got it traced.
Yeah.
On your watercolor table, you've got the reference photo next to you.
Uh-huh.
I talk about value. I talk about value consistencies, which will help you mix either very loose watery washes or washes that have got a lot more pigment in it. So I teach that because you've got to follow the value pattern. And then I start the painting. I do a little bit of it. As I'm doing it, I encourage people to ask me questions. I can paint and answer questions at the same time. And then it's their turn. I give them time. So we go step by step from start to finish, so nobody is lost. Also, during the hours that we paint, we take a break and I say, hey, listen, you want to hold up your painting so I can see what you're doing and give you some advice. And so that's basically what it is. So you don't have to be an expert trying to develop a likeness from drawing from scratch. You could even be a beginner painter.
You know, that might even be better because you don't have any preconceived notions. If you're a beginner, you can just start fresh and this is your style. That's not a bad idea.
Yeah, exactly. And this happens to be, you're following David Lobenberg's style. That's all.
Uh-huh.
But you're learning watercolor.
Right. And before the workshop, we push out a list. So everyone will have a list of the paper, the paint, any other special tools that they need, which actually are pretty minimal if we're just doing pencil, watercolors, water, and watercolor paper. And it's really simple.
Yeah. The chalk markers are inexpensive.
Oh, yes. And
I suggest 2 stencils. They're not much. A stencil like this is between $5 and maybe at max, depending on where you get it, $14. And they're sturdy and they last forever.
do you have an outlet or a special place you like to go for stencils that you order them?
Yeah, I've got 2 places. One is called Stencil Girl,
Uh-huh.
and the other one is called Joggles.
Joggles?
You got it.
Joggles. Awesome. Okay, that's fun. I need to get some stencils for my acrylics too. It'll be so much fun.
Yeah, they're great for acrylics.
Yeah. So people can sign up at SantaFeArtistGetaway.com for David's online class. And when they're done with the class, will they be ready to do their own portraits if they want to do a family picture? Could they apply this to animals too if they wanted to do a picture of their dog?
Oh, absolutely. So the 4-day class, we're basically going to take up those 4 days. You'll be working from my subjects just so you learn how to do it. That's obviously critical. But then after that,
go crazy.
You know the process. You can take your own photographs of family members. You can take a photograph of your pooch or your cat or your dog, whatever, and turn it into a California vibe portraiture masterpiece.
Yes, that's awesome. So David, I know you're in a magazine right now, a watercolor magazine. Can you share what that is? People may want to go pick this up at the newsstands.
Yeah, and it's in the current issue. I know it sells for sure at Barnes and Noble, or you can get it online. So it's a European published magazine, but it's also distributed in North America. And it's called The Art of Watercolor. So I'm in this issue.
And this is issue number 41. So if you're looking online, want to order it or go to the store, that's what you can ask for. Yeah.
Issue 41, and the article starts on page 76.
So if you go online, there's where you go. And it's got a great story about David's process, some more pictures. It is just so much fun. So, David, I have some interesting questions for you.
Okay.
We have about 5 minutes left. So, you are a famous painter already, and someday they are going to make a movie about your life. Is the actor that plays David?
Oh, the actor. Boy, oh boy, that is a good question. Let me think about this. Actor. Oh yeah, well, I want a friendly guy, a personable person. Tom Hanks.
Oh, everyone loves Tom Hanks. I could see him doing David Lobenberg.
Yeah, there you go.
That's awesome.
That's a funny question.
It is. It's a fun question because it's funny to think of ourselves being played by somebody else and in our life interpreted.
Right.
So, David, you're a really colorful guy. So, if you were a color, what color would you be?
See, I remember seeing a movie years and years ago, and it was a stage play called Auntie Mame.
Yes.
Auntie Mame lived in I think she lived in New York. She lived in a beautiful big apartment, maybe off Fifth Avenue, I don't know. But she would always be changing the interior design. Yeah. One month it may be Asian, the next month it may be Picasso, you name it. I like too many damn colors. So, yeah, right now I'm kind of in my, and it's a tough color for portraiture. You got to be careful with it and use it judiciously. I like yellow. I like all the colors. Purple. I like toned down colors too. Sometimes I like to do my work with very little color or toned down color, but I still have expressive ways to put paint on paper and to take it off again and minimize the color. People think of my California vibe style, oh, color, bright, bright, bright. And to a certain extent, that's true. But sometimes I like to minimize it. So, people that take my workshop, I stress that. So, it's their choice. But so no, I can't answer that question.
You are like a chameleon. Your colors are changing.
Yes.
You're blue one day,
yeah.
next. I love that. Well, if anyone has seen David's work, you recognize it. I mean, your style is so distinct and beautiful, and people, once you see David's work, you're going to recognize it again and again and again. So one last question, David. Yeah. Is there something we don't know about you that you would like us to know?
Another interesting question.
I know, we're getting to know you inside and out.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. I'm not the best organized person. My studio can get rather cluttered. At some point, though, I have to clean it up. I got to be very careful about looking at my activity calendar. I have one on the wall month by month, but I got to be very careful, David. Keep track of that because you're not well organized. So, which is kind of an interesting thing to think about because, and I use that with my watercolor. You know, watercolor does take a certain amount of organization.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times you do have to work from light to middle to dark value. Because if you put in a dark value where you don't want it, you're dead in the water.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, by not being the most organized and kind of a little bit on the flaky side, I utilize that, and I think that's why I paint with a hammer.
It's the serendipity, the fun, the unexpected, the things you just let go and flow the good way. Awesome. Oh, David, it has been so delightful talking to you today and giving us a peek not only inside your studio, but your process. So people who want to learn how to do great watercolor portraits with that wild California vibe, go to SantaFeArtistGetaway.com and you'll find more information on David's workshop, plus all the other workshops here at Santa Fe Artist Getaway. So David, thanks for joining us. Any last words as we wrap up today?
Well, first of all, my pleasure. It was great chatting with you. I love it. Of course, I love talking about my style. I just want to say, don't be intimidated about taking my workshop. I hope some of my characters coming through. I'm a friendly guy. When I critique, I always like to encourage people. So I always like to make my workshops a very fun, comfortable situation, but I do impart a lot of knowledge. So if you sign up for my workshop, just sit back, enjoy, and slowly and with practice, you get better and better.
It does all come, it might be overwhelming and feel like a lot, but it always all comes together at the end. And I know by the last day of the workshop, you're going to be wishing you had 4 more days with David. So, well, thank you everyone for joining us. This has been Bev Todd in Santa Fe and David Lobenberg in Sacramento. Go create and have a fabulous week.